Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about a hot button topic, mail-in voting, voting machines, and President Trump's new promise to lead a movement to get rid of both ahead of the 2026 midterms. He's also saying he'll sign an executive order to make it happen. Now, before you roll your eyes or cheer, let's slow down and lay this out clearly. What exactly did he say? What does the law actually allow a president to do? And what are the real issues with mail-in ballots and voting machines? Beyond the slogans, the memes, and the outrage, let's get into it. First, the headline claim. Trump says he wants to eliminate mail-in voting and voting machines and replace them with secure, watermark paper ballots. Basically, high-security print jobs, counted quickly and transparently. If you followed U.S. politics for the last few years, you've heard versions of this again and again. But here's the key bit most people skip. In America's system, elections are run primarily by the states, not by the president. That's not a small detail. That's the whole ballgame. The Constitution gives states the lead role in administering elections, and Congress, again, Congress, not the White House, has the power to set or change a lot of the federal election rules. Courts have repeatedly pushed back when presidents try to reach into the machinery of state elections via executive orders. So even if a president signs a sweeping order, it can be blocked or narrowed by the courts pretty fast. That's not a partisan opinion. That's how separation of powers works in the U.S. You'll find legal analysis and reporting on this point across mainstream outlets and nonpartisan orgs. Okay, so does that mean everything's fine and there's nothing to talk about? Not quite. Let's separate three different questions that usually get mashed together. 1. Can a president unilaterally ban mail-in ballots or voting machines? 2. Are there real fixable problems with how some states handle mail voting and machine tabulation? 3. What actually happened in the most cited 2020 controversies? On the first question, the legal answer is basically no. A president can't, by himself, shut down methods that states choose to use. If he tries, it runs into federalism, state sovereignty, and existing statutes. Courts have said this over and over, and recent litigation around executive orders that dabble in election administration has been paused or blocked. If you hear promises that one signature will overhaul elections nationwide, treat that like a campaign line, not a realistic roadmap. Second question, are there real issues worth fixing? Yes, on both mail voting and machines, but the details matter. Let's talk mail voting first. During the pandemic, a bunch of states expanded absentee and mail-in options. Some states mail ballots to all registered voters. Others require you to request a ballot first, and some require more robust ID procedures than others. That patchwork creates different voter experiences and different political narratives across the country. If ballots arrive after Election Day but still count, depending on postmark and state law, that can stretch out the count. Slow counts aren't fraud, but they absolutely feed suspicion, especially in a polarized climate. The longer we wait for final tallies, the more people fill the silence with conspiracy theories. So what's a reasonable fix? 1. Set clear and consistently enforced deadlines. 2. Improve ID and verification steps without making it harder for legitimate voters, military voters, people with disabilities, folks working 2 jobs, to cast a ballot. 3. Invest in faster processing so results don't take weeks. You don't need to throw out absentee voting to do any of that. You just need better, clearer rules and better resourcing. Now, voting machines. This is where feelings run hottest. People want to know, if I fill out a ballot and feed it into a scanner, does the machine read it correctly? Is it hackable? Can a vendor flip results? The reality: most jurisdictions use systems that create or retain a paper record of your vote, so you can audit and recount. In other words, there's a physical trail. In fact, audits and hand recounts have been done in closely watched places since 2020, Where we've seen high-profile errors, they've usually been connected to human setup mistakes, not machines deciding to change votes. That distinction matters. A misconfigured system is a real problem, but it's not the same as software secretly switching ballots in the background. That brings us to the most famous example, Antrim County, Michigan, in 2020. You've probably heard the story framed like this: thousands of Trump votes magically became Biden votes. What actually happened? Local officials reported bad unofficial numbers on election night because of an update/configuration mistake. They corrected it quickly, and a hand count confirmed the paper ballots matched the corrected totals. In other words, the paper trail did its job. That doesn't mean the initial error was fine. Far from it. But it does mean that the system was auditable and got to the right answer. If you've been told that machines flipped 7,000 votes and got away with it, that's not what official reviews and audits found. Also relevant, Dominion, the voting systems company at the center of many of these claims, sued several media outlets for defamation. The Fox News case ended in a massive settlement, hundreds of millions of dollars, without a trial verdict, which still sends a loud signal about the evidentiary strength of the wildest claims. The settlement isn't itself proof that every rumor is false, but it does show that many high-profile allegations couldn't hold up under the legal standard for evidence. Now, does any of that mean voters should simply trust everything about machines? No. Healthy skepticism is good. What helps is transparency and verifiability. If a jurisdiction uses ballot marking devices or scanners, it should provide voter-verifiable paper records, public logic and accuracy testing before Election Day, strong chain of custody rules, and routine post-election audits. These are boring, unglamorous guardrails, but they're how you earn trust in a pluralistic country where half the people will be disappointed by the final result, no matter what. Let's circle back to Trump's latest promise. He says paper ballots with watermarks are cheaper, faster, and end the debate for good. Paper ballots with strong security features are absolutely a valid option. Lots of places already use paper ballots, period. But cheaper and faster depends on real-world staffing, training, and processing capacity. Counting a high turnout election on paper can be fast if you have enough trained workers and modern tabulators. It can also be painfully slow if you don't. The question isn't paper versus machines as a moral choice. It's how to build a system that is auditable, efficient, and trusted. The right mix can be paper ballots scanned by machines on election day with robust audits afterward. The wrong mix is any system, paper-only or machine-heavy, without clear procedures and transparency. What about the claim that mail-in voting is uniquely corrupt and used only by the U.S.? That's just not accurate. Many democracies allow some form of absentee or mail voting, especially for overseas citizens or folks who can't get to the polls. The key is rule design, deadlines, verification, and how you process ballots that arrive late. The U.S. is unusual in how decentralized and state-specific it is, which makes national conversations messy. But no one else does mail voting isn't true, and saying it creates an easy opening for critics to dismiss the whole argument, even when there are totally legitimate concerns about how some states run their systems. News coverage flagged that Trump's recent statement was legally and factually shaky on this point. Let's also talk politics, since that's the water we're swimming in. When votes counted late swing toward Democrats, people say, "See, fraud." But think about who tends to vote by mail in certain states and which ballots get processed earliest. If a state counts in person, Election Day ballots first, and those skew Republican, and then processes late-arriving absentee ballots that skew Democratic, you can get those ballot dumps that look dramatic on graphs. That's optics plus order of operations, not necessarily misconduct. If you want to fix the optics, fix the processing order and speed. Let states pre-process mail ballots before Election Day, tighten deadlines, and report in clearer batches. That's how you reduce the late-night whiplash. Now, the elephant in the room. If fraud is so rare, why are there all these controversies? Two reasons. First, the US is extremely polarized, and any close race becomes a Rorschach test. Second, our systems are complex. 50 states, thousands of local jurisdictions, different machines, different vendors, different rules. Complexity creates room for error and confusion, even without bad intent. That's why the solution isn't just ban X or trust Y. It's standardization where it matters, audits everywhere, clear public explanations of procedures, and really boring, really good logistics. Here's a way to think about reforms that isn't red versus blue. Clarity. Set uniform, well-communicated deadlines for mail ballots. If you want postmarks to count, say so. If you don't, say so, and enforce it. Verification. Require reasonable ID checks for absentee ballot requests and returns. Make the process accessible but verifiable. Speed. Allow pre-canvassing of mail ballots so results don't drag on for days. Paper trail. Use systems that create voter-verifiable paper records, full stop. Audits. Mandate routine risk-limiting audits after every election, not just in contested states. Transparency. Publish clear chain of custody logs, test results, and audit summaries in plain English, not just PDF dumps no one reads. Training. Invest in local election staff. Most machine errors that make headlines start as human configuration mistakes. Eliminate those with better training and checklists. So where does that leave Trump's promise? As a political message, it energizes people who already think 2020 was stolen and who don't trust machines or mail ballots. As a legal plan, it runs straight into constitutional limits. If you want to change election rules nationwide, you're looking at Congress and state legislatures, not a pen stroke in the Oval Office. Past attempts to rewire election procedures by executive order have run into immediate legal trouble, and the new election-related orders we've seen this year are already hitting judicial speed bumps. Expect lawsuits. Expect injunctions. That's how this story plays out in court. Now, one more thing that matters for trust. When allegations cross from political rhetoric into courtrooms, they have to meet an evidence standard. That's why the Dominion-Fox settlement is such a big deal. It signals that under scrutiny, the loudest, most sweeping claims couldn't be defended. At the same time, the Antrim County example shows something else. Local mistakes can and do happen, but a paper trail and audits can correct them. Those two data points push in the same direction. The way to restore confidence isn't by burning down the system. It's by improving the guardrails and doing boring accountability work every single cycle. So, is mail-in voting inherently corrupt? No. Can it be abused if rules are loose and enforcement is weak? Sure, and the fixes are straightforward. Are voting machines evil robots? No. Can setup errors and poor oversight create real-world mistakes that fuel suspicion? Absolutely. And again, the fix is audits, transparency, and training. If you want one sentence to take away, here it is. We should demand elections that are paper auditable, fast to count, and boring to argue about. And if you want a practical checklist for your state or county, ask your local election officials these questions before the next big vote. Do you use voter-verifiable paper ballots? Do you publish pre-election logic and accuracy test results? Can outside observers watch those tests? When do you start processing absentee ballots? Before or after Election Day? What's the deadline policy for mail ballots, and is it consistent from cycle to cycle? Do you run routine, publicized, post-election audits? Is the chain of custody documented and posted online? If the answers are clear in public, confidence goes up, no matter who wins. To wrap this up, let's be fair to both sides. People backing Trump aren't crazy for wanting a system they can see and verify. People defending current systems aren't naive for pointing out that audits, recounts, and courts have repeatedly confirmed results. The work now is to turn those concerns and those confirmations into better policy. Less drama, more data. Fewer promises that can't survive a courtroom, more rules that do. If you found this helpful, hit like, share it with a friend who's tired of the shouting, and drop a comment with the one change you think would most improve confidence where you live. And hey, if you're an elections worker, thank you. Most of this runs on your back. And you rarely get the credit when things go right. See you in the next one.